I'm live. Good evening, everybody. It's me, Comic Crack. I couldn't resist. I've got a few books from this family in town who is selling this incredible collection. The kind of update on that is that they've started a private Facebook group and they're piecing out the collection, trying to put like stuff together, or in the case of this book that we're going to look at tonight, just offering it up on its own. Um, and there's a lot of the postings that'll have like a suggested asking price for it. So they're dialed into how I personally think is it's got positives and negatives on how to sell this collection. I think it's positive because then at least you're kind of offering it to a group of people, hopefully, that are interested in this stuff. And I believe that it's a fair price. Would I like to have these books at a lot cheaper? Of course I would, but it's just not going to be the reality. So the positive side is that it's not a situation of bidding on an entire box that may have stuff that I already have or things that I don't necessarily want just to get the books that I want. So I think that's a really good thing. And again, this is a fantastic example of it. There was a number of Richard Corben books in this collection. And she was kind enough to send me a photo of a stack of them. I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 of them. And there was only 2 books in that first set of photos that she sent me that I actually needed for my own personal collection. And this was one of them. There's a lot of stuff that I already have. I also got another edition of Bloodstar, a second edition of Bloodstar. So I've got the hardcover one. This is a soft cover one that I've purchased from her. But this is Richard Corben's Werewolf that's been on my list for a long time. I'll probably end up talking more about the sales on Sunday when I do my Sunday chat, and I'll kind of show off what I picked up. I'm going to pick up some more stuff tomorrow. So yeah, I personally think it's been pretty decent, but we'll talk more about it on Sunday. So for tonight, I wanted to take you through this Corben collection because I think this is probably one of the better Corben collections from this graphic novels and stuff that was coming out in the 80s. So this is Catalan Communications version, and it came out in 1984, first printing 1984. So for those of you that are here in the chat, I've done my best. I realize when it lays flat, there's probably a bit of a glare. So I'm trying my best to do this. Is that showing up? Because I also turned down the brightness on my computer monitor quite a bit because it was creating quite a glare on this book as well too. So let me know if this is looking sharp. How is this reading on the screen there for those of you that are hanging out? So at this point, I've got a shit ton of Corben stuff. I love all of it, but there's some of these collections that I think he's one of those artists that if people aren't as familiar with his work and maybe want to look at not necessarily an entry point, but maybe something, because again, these collections aren't the cheapest, but I think what some of these collections offer is a really nice format and a really nice way to see his work. This one does, I think, some of the best job of highlighting his career, taking this idea of werewolf stories, pulling from stuff, I think that goes from 1979 to 1984. Yeah, so 1979 to 1984 is the era that this collection spans. There's also a few stories here that are written by other people that he does the art for. But what I think this ends up showcasing is a look at Corben's art, because it's kind of dramatic how much it changes just throughout this one book. And you can see there's only 7 different stories here. The first story is in black and white, and I think the rest of them are in color. It's such a fantastic way to go through that few years of his career and look at what he's been playing with, and I'm assuming what appears on the pages and the changes that he made to it. The stories are all really great as well. Again, everything centering around a werewolf stories. Liberator does an introduction here. He is the creator of Ranks Xerox, I think, or Ran Xerox, that appeared in Heavy Metal magazine and probably Metal Hurlant as well. Really nice introduction that ends pretty comically. All the stories, in one way or another, pit the werewolf against a woman. Different women, but always identical, soft, vulnerable, voluptuous, and endowed with the anatomical exaggerations that only Corben can get away with drawing. In spite of all this, his women are never abstract goddess figures. They're real enough and embody every red-blooded man's ultimate desire. I wanted to sound philosophical, but I guess I've just ended up sounding like a horny Italian. Great little intro to the book there. So I'll just kind of take you through it. One thing that I wish it would have done was tell you exactly where all of this stuff came from, where it was first published. I'm guessing that it draws from underground comics. It's Catalan stuff, so it's not necessarily from like heavy metal. There's a couple of stories that I do recognize. I don't know where I've read them before. So we start out with a short black and white piece, which it's nice to get that introduction to his style. It's a lot rougher. The lines are a little softer, but it still has that Corben character to it. There's, I think, one. Yeah, this page was really great. I like this little transformation panel here. And one of the things that appears more in one of the other stories is this perspective that I don't always associate with Corben. This kind of camera angle is not something that I would identify as something that Corben would do. So you also get a couple of stories where he does play around with how he's framing things and playing around, not necessarily with layouts, but some of that is very dramatic in a story that we'll look at in a little bit, where almost every panel has a different kind of perspective and the characters taking up different amounts of space within the panels. That I think works incredibly well. So after that short one, we get the Beast of Wolfton. And this is where we start to get that the family, there's basically the main character, or the main werewolf character in this story, appears in some form in a couple of the stories. His son appears in the story after this one. So this is kind of the origin story. The one thing that you can tell with some of this Corben stuff is the lettering, where it is really just typed out and pasted onto the page. Lacks quite a bit of character. It kind of stands out in not the best way. But here we can see him playing with some of the color work, and we get some of his very soft faces and very odd looking characters, designs. Not much to report on this one. This woman is just disgusted with her husband, who's always trying to force himself on her, and she just ends up insulting him, calling him a pig. Vile, squamous fiend, disgusting, leprous, debased worm, nasty, repulsive, abnormal slug, burn in hell. So she's really in love with this guy. So he's on the hunt for this wolf creature that has been terrorizing the town. They go into the lore of the two different peoples, where this guy comes from, and why he is now transforming into a werewolf. And of course, as Liberator said in the beginning, we do get a lot of Corben's buxom babes throughout all of these stories here. Beautiful. This one, I loved the transition of color from his neck up to his face. I thought was really effectively done. Looked really great. And again, Corben's use of lighting in all of his work is pretty standalone. Something like this, I think, is a beautiful example of it, where you can see that kind of model in his hand that he's kind of drawing influence from, and kind of really looking at the way the light hits the sculpture's face and things. Really great. So we get this story. I won't go into too many details about the stories themselves, but we'll just look at some of the pages that stood out to me. Of course, the thing that's going to break the curse is love from a human woman. In this case, no surprise to anybody, this woman is disgusted with pretty much every single man, and as soon as he comes, he reaches climax, she cuts his goddamn head off. So pretty great. Little too late though, because she is pregnant as she takes off into the woods, and we get kind of like an aftermath where at some point in the future she's giving birth to a very strange child, is what it says. So the spirit of the beast is next, and this is now the son, and his story here, or a little sample of his story. And again, Corben playing with color palettes that we'll see through a lot of his work. This greens, yellows, and purples. This is very, to me, this is a very much a Corben palette. And again, this woman that appears to be a damsel in distress, but as the story unfolds, we find out that that's not true whatsoever. She's more than capable of taking care of herself. And in this case, when she kills these men, she blames it on the werewolf. He kind of tells her his story and asks her to lock him up so he doesn't harm anybody, which she does. These guys, these thugs, come back to try to take advantage of her again, and she dispatches them pretty handily. Great panels here. And of course, he's now racked with the guilt of what he did while he was a monster. Rhoda and the Wolf. This is one where it's kind of like, this is actually a really fun one. It's a Little Red Riding Hood, basically, is what it is. But mostly done silent, and when there is dialogue, it's a made-up language. But the most notable thing in this one is the dramatic change in the art. You can really see Corben and his detail if we look at that guy's eye there through the mask. That's a fully fleshed out person. Yes, it's still Corben, and yes, it's still very cartoony, but there's something really, really different and a kind of next phase going on here, that he's really focused on some of these details to make things as realistic as possible. Jose Villarrubia posted something today, a Corben story that I was unfamiliar with called Ogre. I did a very, very quick search. It was on my lunch at work. Did a very quick search online to see if I could find anything about it. I didn't see it in English. I saw it coming out overseas, but I haven't taken a real deep dig. But the look of that book is spectacular, really beautifully rendered into, again, like making it look like these are three-dimensional figures on the page, like every figure is a sculpture. Beautiful panel there. And then we get, what big eyes you have, what big teeth you have, etc. We get that page. And even though it is in kind of this gibberish language, you get the gist of it as you're reading it. And turns into the werewolf just about to chomp down on her neck when she's saved by the group of hunters passing by the cottage. And amazing shot there. And of course, again, she comes and ends up slicing him open, where you can see, I guess, people inside his belly, but a really fantastic ending. And then again, we get another style of Corben with the, it's really, and I think that was the thing that was most impressive to me about this book. In one book, seeing these different approaches to his art, and each one having its own effect. This one having more like a washed out effect to the overall story. And I love this panel. I love the way the werewolf is in the foreground and those arms stretch across that entire panel, and she's kind of in the background, but kind of in the meat of his paw. Really, really well done. Very kind of cartoony and playing with perspective. That I loved that panel. What else do we got? And here we have again our character from the previous stories, or at least a version of that same character, this guy being the werewolf. Or is he? I think that's what's played with pretty well in this story. And one of the other ones too might be, oh no, not this one. Yeah, I think it was in this one that I'm thinking of. But beautiful work there on the colors of that panel. And this is one of them that kind of played more with the perspectives that I was talking about. But again, just drawing attention to, hopefully this is showing up okay, drawing attention to like this mask. Again, that feels like that's a very real figure on the page there. Outstanding, really outstanding. Change into something comfortable is what this story is. And these kids who are trick-or-treating think this guy is wearing a werewolf costume, and of course that turns out not to be true, and he tears him limb from limb. That shot there is beautiful. And again, a page like this, taking care of those guys on the street, these thugs on the street. Amazing stuff there. But yeah, it has a very different quality, and again, like these kind of perspectives, especially this one here, looking down the alley, just her foreshortening in the foreground there is really nice. But there's some sculpting going on here for sure that, again, this balancing a very cartoony style with something very realistic. And that one there plays again with a bit of that perspective. And again, not just stuff that I don't associate necessarily with Corben and his work. And of course, he finds a house with, in his mind, victims because he's hungry, but it turns out they're all wearing costumes as well. They just happen to have costumes of humans. So the tables get turned on him. And then I think this is the last one here, Fur Trade. Beautiful page there. A little flatter looking. Not as kind of, doesn't draw you in kind of the same way that some of his other ones do. Still beautifully done though. And again, unfortunate about the text in these. It's really, it's just not nice to look at. And this, especially a story like this where it is so text heavy, it really ends up standing out like a sore thumb, unfortunately. But if you look past that, you still get some beautiful Corben work there. So a short book, $12.95 when it came out. It is a bit pricier when you can find it. I'm so glad that I was able to nab this. My hope is that there is more Corben in this collection. I've spoken to her about, if it's not too much trouble, if you could send me photos of stuff before you post things, just so I can kind of pick out the other couple of Corbens that I need. I know that in this collection, he had the, where is it? Not that. There was the Underground series of books. Yeah. I think he had the first two from this Richard Corben Underground, the complete works of his Underground comics. There was only 3 volumes of this from Catalan Communications. I only have this one. So in the collection, I think there was volume 1 and 2. So those are the next ones I'm hoping to be able to get my hands on from this collection. And then the rest were kind of Dan and all these books that I already had. So hopefully there's more of this to come as I flesh out my Corben. There you have it. If you see it in the wild, I wouldn't hesitate. Really great look at Corben's work and style across 7 short stories there from 1984, Catalan Communications. Right on, everybody. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you on the weekend. If I can stop this. Can't see the damn cursor. Okay, there we go. Later.